Today on the Garage Engineer, we are going to update our work table. Just like any other shop, the Workbench is unique to each person who builds it and how they use it. This has worked us very well. We got 4x6 legs. We've added some storage underneath. When we first built this, it was for a different table. It was a Delta contractor saw, so it was a little bit lower. Now that we got an upgraded Delta saw. So that's why we have multiple layers of plywood for the top, because we were trying to raise it up higher. And even with that, we are still a little short from the height of the bed. So what we're going to do today is get our sacrificial board off and then put the new board. And I think if we just put the new board on, we're not going to have to make any modifications on height. We'll just slap it on and it'll be a lot easier. After I use a waste board like that, I hate throwing it away, kind of like on the CNC machine. I like to see all that's been done to it. It's kind of like a history of all the projects that's been made on it. So I might cut it up and make some type of art piece out of it, maybe something to hang like a picture. So it looks like I used little nails to nail down the sacrificial board, so we got to get all those pieces out. And then after that, we'll bring in the new material. So my opinion about workbenches is that I don't want it to have to be perfect. It's not going to be an antique that's going to be passed on to the next generation. I know I'm going to be working on it, I'm going to beat on it, I'm going to accidentally drill through it, and that's okay. So I never really have to worry about ruining my tabletop. So I just went over everything, make sure there's no little bumps or anything, so it's kind of somewhat flat surface. So when we put on our new board, it'll have a good base to work off of. So let's go get the material. And here it is. This is a cut down piece of 4x8, 3/4 inch melamine. This is typically built to use cheap cabinets and shelving for closets. I particularly don't like using it for those reasons because the edges chip badly. The core of it is particle board and it's not very dense, so you don't usually get a clean cut. You typically have to edge band it, which I don't normally have a problem with that on projects, but I just don't like working with it. But the benefit of this as a tabletop is that I don't care about the edges. We're going to clean it up a little bit with some trim, but this is a work surface. This isn't a finished piece that's going in somebody's house. And the other benefit is this. Let me show you. So even with those negatives about the edging, chipping, and it just not having a good quality core, what I like about this, and I've seen in my friend's cabinet shop, is that glue and this melamine do not like each other. Glue will not stick to it. So even if you get it on there while it's still wet, you can just take a wet cloth and wipe it off. But let's say it sits and dries. Well, when you can come back with a putty knife and you scrape the glue off and it'll just pop right off. So that way it keeps your work surface clean. The one thing that will bother me, or something I've got to learn that might not bother most people watching this video, is that as a content creator, that is a big old piece of bright white spot when trying to videotape, and the white balance, it's killing the white balance in the shop. But I'll worry about that later. Now the top to the old workbench was 30 inches deep by 5.5 foot long. The reason it was 5.5 foot long, I think that's the piece of lumber I had at the time when I made it, and that's why I made it to that size. The reason I made it 30 inches specifically was because that is a good distance for me to stand on one edge and to reach over and grab easily on both sides. Now I'm going to try something a little different. I left this piece at 40 inches or 48 inches wide, which is what it comes as, and cut it down to 5'8". The reason why I want it 5'8" is just because with the shop, I want to keep the size that short, because I don't have enough room for a full 4x8 sheet. I don't like 4x8 sheets because it just makes reaching in the middle a little bit more difficult. Then you have to go around to the other side. We'll leave it at the 4 foot width and see how we like it. If not, we can always come back and just cut it down. So to clean up the edges around the perimeter of the board, we're going to put lumber, probably just pine, whatever we can find in the shop. All that is one, to make it a little bit nicer, but two, to keep it kind of a bumper guard so we don't ding up the sides too bad. So I'm trying to decide how to place the top onto the old workbench. And I don't want to do it flush here because I think when I'm trying to clamp something down, I'm going to lose. That's a good 2.5 inches that I will lose in clamping space. So what I'm going to do is we're going to pull the board 2.5 inches out this way and maybe 1.5 inches that way to give wherever, depending on wherever I'm at, I'll be able to clamp to it. And I think it'll still be strong on the ends and it won't tip. We are going to put a few screws at the bottom just to hold it in. But other than that, I think that will do what we need to do. So I'm going to get this measured up, screwed in, and then we will work on banding the edges. So when I'm trying to measure the depth of something, the easiest way to do it is like to take a square and just measure the depth that I want to go and put it right up there, and that makes it quick rather than using a tape measure and having to keep measuring 2.5 inches and figuring out that way. This way you don't even have to think about it. You just kind of put it up to the board and measure it. So that side's good. That side's good. And the end is 1.5 inches. So we're where we want to be. I'm going to clamp it up to hold it, make sure it doesn't move, and then we'll pre-drill everything. So I just want to show an example of what reason why I don't like using this for project builds. See, I gave it a little bit too much impact there, and the point broke through and it cracked the melamine. So if this was a project, I would be upset and have to redo it. But since this isn't a project and this is a work table that's going to get beat up, no problem. So we just cut a pine 2x4 down to 1/2 inch thick and 1 inch tall. Now all we're going to do is glue it and nail it with our brad nailer to the edge. Now the piece 2x4 wasn't long enough to go the full 5 foot 8 inches, so we're going to splice a piece together to make it the right length. So I think that worked out. The trim came out pretty nice. What I'm going to do next is just do a light sand just to get just any rough edges off, and then I'm going to chamfer the corner right here so that it's not a sharp edge when I'm working on it. So we'll do that real quick, and I think we'll be done with this project. So routering on that last step was probably unnecessary, but your hands will thank you in the future in not getting them cut or just put that sharp edge pushing on your hands and arms when you're working. So I think we've gotten to a point that we are finished, and I'm pretty happy how it turned out. We do have to move our vise to another location. It's not working the way we have it set up now, but that's all right. We've got a nice big space, so we'll just have to see how it works, being 4 foot across, and see how we like it. If not, we'll just cut it down. That's the great thing about woodworking. You can customize it to however you want. Thanks for coming along on our shop upgrade of the workbench. I think we're going to be very happy with it, and we'll have to start a new project to test it out. And remember the ABCs of making. Always be creating. Till next time.